Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's training session on Right to Publish, Research and Academic Writing for International Journal. We are delighted to have all of you join us for this exciting session. Today, we are deeply honored to have Associate Professor Dr. Supakorn Phoocharoensil. Now, he currently the Director of the Language Institute at Thammasat University and the Editor-in-Chief of Learn Journal, with its index in Scopus, ERIC, ACI, and TCI Tier 1. With his extensive experience and expertise in academic writing for publication, Dr. Supakorn is highly qualified to guide us in today's session. Before we begin, please ensure that your audio and video settings are working properly. If you run into any technical issue or have any question, please feel free to use the chat box to contact our staff or to share your ideas. We are also encourage you to actively participate and make the most of this opportunity to learn and exchange ideas. Now, without further delay, let's begin the session. Please join me in welcoming Associate Professor Dr. Supakorn Phoocharoensil. Please welcome.
So thank you very much,ครับfirst, can you hear me well? ได้ยินนะครับ Okay, can you all hear me? Thank you so much. So this is my second time to give a talk online for Phoocharoensil University, and most of you are graduate students. Thank you very much. Right. So there are both MA and PhD students. Right. And if I'm not mistaken, most of the audience today are from science, right? Okay, so I have to let you know that actually, my current job is teaching English and also applied linguistics. So, I'm from humanities, right? But I'm gonna try my best to, share with you some of my knowledge, right? Especially my experience as editor-in-chief of Learn Journal. And, I'm sure that you are going to benefit, to some extent from my lecture today. Unfortunately, my slides would not be shared because it's copyrighted, right? But actually, if you like, you can also take some photos of any slides that you like, but please do not share them in the social media, right? Okay, so let me start with, okay, now we have like 48 people joining us, including me. Okay, let me try sharing the screen. Okay, now I think you can see the screen. Okay. Right, so this is my slide, นะครับ Okay, today, I understand that most of you are required to publish because, when you study for graduate level, one of the important requirements, especially universities in Thailand, right? We have to get some part of our research findings, right, published in international journals, right? So today we are going to talk about this, right? We are going to start from Thai journals, right? And then we are moving up to international journals, and then Scopus Index journals. That is the main aim for researchers, right? So once in a lifetime, if you can publish in Scopus Index journals, right, that, mark a new milestone for your academic success. Okay, so the topic today is right to publish, research and academic writing for international journals. So here's my outline. I'm gonna cover the following topics in my talk today. So first, we are going to look at reasons for publishing. I'm going to introduce to you guys some Thai and international journals that are of good quality. And then we are going to discuss some publication opportunities in Scopus journals, right? And finally, we are going to look at some top reasons for journal rejection. So the last topic also is crucial, since knowing why manuscripts are rejected can help us, right, a lot, because this can prevent our papers from getting rejected? Okay, first of all, let's start with reasons for publishing. So according to ICLE 2004, right, there are many reasons why academics, including graduate students, publish their research papers, right? So you all are doing your research, right, for your PhD and MA studies, right? After you have obtained your research results, you want to disseminate or share the results with other people who are in the same field, right? This way, this is the first reason why people conduct research, and then why do they need to share the research findings with other people in the same discipline, right? Because you want to share your research result. You want to maintain your meaningful academic communication with other researchers in the same discipline. And there are some academic community, right, that the members, right, where all the members would know one another through publications. For example, if you join like some society, let's say Society of Applied Linguistics, or if you join like Thailand TESOL Association, that's for English language teachers in our country, right? So you are going to become known among these people if you publish a lot, especially in some particular fields or subfields. And people publish because they want to benefit the education, right? Okay, now that we have some interesting findings, right, we don't want to keep them with us, right, forever. Instead, we should also make sure that our interesting result would be beneficial to others, right? In other words, other people who are doing research in the same field can also cite our paper. They can also learn something from our paper, and they can also pursue their own study later. Moreover, people do research because it benefits their careers, right? This is called job related. Okay, there are many universities in the world, including those in China, Singapore, Thailand, or sometimes Korea, that would require international published articles. I mean, some articles that are published internationally. This is to secure their tenure, right? So if you want to, like, for example, in some universities in Thailand, right, like Thammasat University or Chulalongkorn University, right, you need to become assistant professor within 5 years after getting admitted. And after that, you will have like 5 more years to become associate professor. And then you get like permanent contract until retirement. And you can choose to, do research for your full professorship or whatever, right? But, if you cannot reach associate professorship within 10 years after getting this job, right, your contract will be terminated, something like that. So it sounds quite scary, right? So we as researchers do not do research just for fun alone, right? But we do research just to maintain our job. Right, it's part of our job, it's our duty. And in some cases, we say that we can advance our careers, right? This is our career path that we need to go forward, right? And in some other cases, you can, ask for some research grants or funding, right? This means that there are going to be like, there are some research institutions that would provide us with scholarships if we show them some evidence of our potential, right? For example, in Thailand, if you want to get a scholarship from Ministry of Education or from, there are many different government institutes like Mahesi, Ministry of Higher Education, right? So they are going to give you funding if and only if the the recipient, right, the candidate, have a strong background in publication, especially if they are capable of Scopus Index publications. So it's more likely for them to get the grant. Okay. And there are some other countries that where the researchers who want to ask for financial support will need to show them some proof that you can also get published in Scopus journals, right? I mean, get write some papers based on your research study and get it published in a good journal. Okay, and the most important for you, all of you today, is for graduation, right? For MA students and PhD students, right? We do research, and I think at MFU, right, at Mafalung University, we need to get some parts of our paper, some parts of the research results, right, published, right? Because the reason why we need publishing is not many people would like to read the whole dissertation or thesis. It's boring, right? But once you write a paper, the paper that is summarized from your entire thesis would be more interesting because it's like you are presenting the main idea or the gist or the major results or something that you want to highlight in your paper that are based on your own study. So this way, people can access your study more easily and more conveniently. So that's why in Thailand, as well as in many other countries, uh, there are some study requirements that before graduate students are allowed to graduate, they need to publish in whatever journals. It depends on the how the program, right, are strictนะครับ some study programs are very strict and demanding, and they require that graduates publish in Scopus Index. Some are even more ambitious, and they say that you need to publish in like only quartile 1 or quartile 2 Scopus Index journal only, right? So that makes the requirement even more challenging. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about Scopus soon. Let's start with something that is easier. In our country, in Thailand, and this is very useful because even though you are not Thai, I think some of the study program that you are now joining would allow you to publish in Thai Journal Citation Index, right? So it depends on the requirements of each program, right? Okay. TCI in TCI stands for Thai Journal Citation Index, right? And in Thailand, all the academic journals are classified into 3 categories, with tier 1 being the best, followed by tier 2 and tier 3 respectively. Okay, so there are some study programs that require the students, right, to publish in tier 1, right? Any tiers lower than tier 1 would not be accepted, right? Okay, so that's quite challenging, right? Okay, I'm not so sure in at Mafalung University, do you have any requirement on publication? เสร็จแล้วฮะมีไหมคะ you can even type your response here, or you can turn on the microphone. มีไหมครับ Are there any requirements? No. So to the best of my knowledge, some universities have such requirements on publication. And different studies program have different requirements, right? Some programs that are very well known, they would even require tier 1. whereas some program that is less known would require tier 2, right, as the minimum. Okay, while there are some other universities like Khon University that require PhD students to publish in Scopus Index journals, right? So that's going to make your life harder, right? Okay. So here, uh, sorry, it's in Thai, but I like you to see that there are three tiers in TCI. And, tier one, actually, tier one is not the majority, despite the fact that it should be, right? Because now we can see that as of July the 1st, 2025, this is the latest uh, information that we get from TCI, the majority are tier 2. So now we have like 563 journals out of 1,097 journals that are in tier 2. So it means that these journals have to try their best to improve the quality of the journal so that they would be upgraded to tier 1 soon, right? And usually, this evaluation would last 5 years, but TCI is kind enough to allow journals to improve their quality so that they can get upgraded, right? And I don't recommend that you publish in tier 3 because tier 3 is the quality is not very good, right? And most of the journals are new journals, right? Okay, so these are examples of some TCI1. Okay, now we are talking about TCI1, social sciences and humanities journals, right? There are journals in Asian Political Science Review. So these are the titles of the journals, right? So this one relates to political science. There are also other journals that are concerned with communication and media, right? Some journals deal with crime law, social issues, right? While there are some journals that are very specific, like Journal of Inclusive and Innovative Education. So we can see that the aim and scope of these journals differ from one to another. Some journals would welcome papers that are in a wide range of subdisciplines like Journal of Humanities and Social Sciences. So the scope is quite broad, right? So they accept any papers whose content about humanities. Humanity is one big field. Social studies include a lot more subdisciplines, right? In contrast, there are some journals that, aim at accepting only papers in very specific fields, like the last one, Journals of Studies in the English Language. So here, the scope is narrowed down to English language studies, or maybe English linguistics, in science, right? So from what I have seen in the information sheet, right? Many of many of the audience today are from the science field, and you need to publish, right? Okay, so these are, to mention but a few, right? These are some titles that are in TCI1, right? Okay, like Journal of Science and Innovative Technology, Journal of Applied Research, Journal of Associated Medical Sciences, Journal of Food Health and Environmental Science, right? To be honest, I am not in that field, right? So you have to talk to some experts, or maybe at least talk to your thesis supervisor, right? Your supervisor can give you some recommendation. They can suggest that you publish in this journal, you submit your papers to this journal, not that journal, something like that, right? Ask those who have experience, and this can help, right? Actually, there are many other journals that are in this field, that are in science, right? But actually, I mean, I cannot list them all, right? But you can search for them in the TCI website, right? Once you log in TCI website, right, you are going to be able to access all the list of, you know, journals in the field that you are interested in that are indexed in TCI 1 or 2, right? Okay, in the field of language and linguistics, there are journals like ภาษานะครับ Learn Journal. This one is the journal that I'm the editor-in-chief of. There are Reflections, New English Teacher, JSO. So you can see that Journal of Studies in the English Language. This is by the Faculty of Liberal Arts, Thammasat University, another faculty that is our neighbor, right? So ภาษาและภาษาศาสตร์ so all of these are in tier 1, right? Thoughts นะครับ Thought is another good journal that accept papers in English linguistics, translation, and English literature. Right. Okay. There are also some good language linguistics journal in tier 2, like ภาษาปริทัศน์ Thai TESOL Journal, NIDA Journal of Language and Communication, BRU means Buri Ram Ratchapat University ELT Journal. Right. Okay. Some of you might be wondering why I am talking a lot about the significance of Scopus. So before we go into further detail, let me give you some overview of Scopus. Actually, Scopus is an index and a database that include content from over 28,000 active title. Title here means journal title. So it means that on average, there are approximately 28,000 journals that are still active. Active means they are still publishing, right? While at the same time, there are some journals that are inactive, which means they maybe they are discontinued in Scopus. Maybe they still publish, but they have been removed from Scopus because of their inadequate quality, right? And there are like more than 7,000 publishers around the world that have journals indexed in Scopus. Publishers are like Routledge, for example, Sage, Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press, John Benjamin's, for example, right? These are examples of publishers that are very well known. Scopus also delivers the broadcast overview of global interdisciplinary scientific data and literature, and they claim that they have up to 24 disciplines, data in these 24 disciplines. Okay. Criteria for Scopus inclusion. First, right, at least, even though you are not working as an editor like me, knowing how Scopus set a very high set of criteria might benefit you to some extent, right? Criteria. Scopus set a number of demanding criteria for a journal to meet before that journal gets accepted in this database. First, they must have peer review content. So peer review here means double blind peer review. So it's like, when you submit a paper to a journal index in Scopus, like Learn Journal, we are going to send it out to 2 or more reviewers who are going to have a look at the quality of your paper, and they are going to decide on the evaluation result. They might ask you to revise, or they might not give you any chance for revision, rejecting your paper, right? Okay. And these journals have to publish regularly, right? Regularly, like maybe according to the policy of that journal, maybe every year or maybe twice a year, right? Okay. And they must have content relevant and readable for an international audience. Okay. So it means that they need to make sure that they publish their content in world accepted languages, namely English. and sometimes Mandarin, right? So most of Scopus index journals publish their work in English, right? And there are some other journals that also publish in some other languages like Mandarin Chinese, right? Okay, now we are going to look at publication opportunities in Scopus Journal. So this is very important. So please pay attention to this, right? Okay. Don't worry, I'm going to allow you to ask. Right, we are going to have like Q&A session before we take a break and before we end our session this afternoon. So here, there are some Scopus index journals. Some are international Scopus journals, some are Thai Scopus journals, right? You need to know that Scopus journals are classified into 4 groups according to the quartiles. The quartiles are calculated based on the citations that each journal has annually. These citations are called site score, right? Okay, นะครับ quartile in Scopus uh, right, can be checked. Actually, you can check these quartiles looking at Scopus website, right? And the quartile in Scopus, usually they are announced on maybe April or May, right? Okay, in April or May, นะครับ and then there is another website that is called Saimago Journal Ranking. Saimago Journal Ranking is closely related to Scopus, right? But they are going to calculate the citation and they are going to label the quartile too, right? But they are using different formula. That's why sometimes we can find that some journals that are in Q1 in Scopus might be in Q2 in Saimago due to the different formulas being used. Okay, so this is some facts that you need to know and understand, right? นะครับ Uh, so here, according to the Q ranking in Scopus, right? Q1 is the best. Q1 means the journals in that particular field that are in, the that has percentile of 75 or above, right? So here, yeah, it means that this is like 1/4 of the best journals in the database, right? Q1 is better than Q2. Q2 is better than Q3 and 4 respectively, right? There would be some institutes that would reward academics if and only if they can publish in only Q1 and Q2 uh, because they are like two reputable quartiles, right? But if you are new in your field, and if this is your first time that you want to try, right, to publish in Scopus index journals, I would suggest that you start with the lowest Q, like Q4 or maybe Q3, so that it's not going to be too hard for you. And after you get the hang of publication in Scopus index journals, you can try something that's more challenging next time, right? Okay. Actually, let me briefly go over this, right? Because these are in the field of English language teaching and applied linguistics, right? The data. This is the data from last year, and actually, the updated information of this year is going to come out soon, maybe sometime at the end of this month, right? Okay. Right. So you don't have to remember this, right? Because all of this information is available in Saimago website นะครับ Let me emphasize this to you. For those who are in social sciences and humanities, can you type for me? If you think you are in humanities and social sciences, can you please type your field, right? It may be the faculty that you study in, or it may be the field of your study, right? You can try เกษตรศาสตร์ Journal of Social Science. This is one of the best, one of the first journals in Thailand, index in Scopus, and they accept papers in all the fields of social sciences and humanities. So if you are doing literature, linguistics, language teaching, or social sciences like business administration, marketing, economics, law, you can feel free to submit your papers to KJSS, right? Actually, เกษตรศาสตร์ has two journals that belong to the university, right? One is KJSS, and the other one is เกษตรศาสตร์ Journal of Science. That's accept papers in pure science, right? And they are twins, นะครับ Oh, no response. Oh, I wish you, I would like you to type some of your field of study in the chat box, right? So that we know what field you are from, นะครับ You can try ABAC journal, right? ABAC journal is in the field of marketing and business because ABAC is well known for this field, right? Okay, ABAC journal is right one of the oldest journals in Thailand, and then it was indexed in Scopus. Manushya is another good journal by Chulalongkorn University, which accepts only paper in humanities, right? Has is another journal, another good journal published by Silpakorn University, right? And they accept papers in humanities, arts, and social sciences, right? There is also another good journal that's called Journal of Siam Society, but you have to be sure because they publish papers regarding fine arts like sculpture, what some different kinds of arts, right? And then Khon Kaen University also has Journal of Mekong Societies, right? And Thammasat also has Thammasat Review that accepts paper in social sciences. You might be wondering why one single journal can be classified into different quartiles. This means they might have some related fields that are different, right? For example, ABAC journal. ABAC journal is considered to be Q1 in literature, Wannakadi, but Q4 in maybe social sciences, I'm not so sure. But if that particular journal can be related to more than one fields of education, they could have different quartiles. Okay. Let me see from you. Okay. Right. เดี๋ยวนะฮะ Okay, so some of you are from one is from education or TESOL, so you are the same field as me. One is from health science, right? Humanities, public health, mycology. Oh, good. Mycology, if I'm not wrong, it's like the study of fungi, right? Public health, okay. Bioscience field, right? Okay, good. Also, there are journals, other journals like Journal of Population and Social Studies, Sulanari, Journal of Social Science. This one is published by Sulanari Technological University, right? Journal of Multidisciplinary in Social Sciences. So here, when you see the word multidisciplinary, they accept papers in different fields, but they must be in social sciences. Journal of International Buddhist Studies. So here, Buddhist studies mean your paper must be related to Buddhism or Buddhist studies. Otherwise, if your papers are about, sheep breeding, nah, or fish breeding and have nothing to do with Buddhist studies, your paper can be rejected right away. Right. Not because your paper is not good, but because your paper doesn't go with the aim and scope of the journal that you are trying. There is also another called Journal of Buddhist Anthropology. Right. That is a new journal that got indexed in Scopus. That's why there is no quartile being assigned. So when you see some journals are indexed in Scopus, but they don't have quartile because they have just been recently accepted by Scopus. So it's gonna take 2 or 3 more years for Scopus to assign the quartile. And in language education, we have Learn Journal. Now I'm using the quartile according to Saimago, right? ภาษา right? Learn and ภาษา and reflections and new English teacher. We are Q1 in linguistic and language, and we are Q3 in education, right? And then the new kid to the block, Journal of Studies in the English Language by the Faculty of Liberal Arts. So most of us, actually almost all, are in Q2 in linguistics and language. Okay, now for those who are in science, I have C2 more, right? Okay, there are some graduate student in nursing and another one in anti-aging science from health science. Good, thank you, Kap. So here, you can try journals like Science and Technology Asia, right? Okay, this is published by Research Center of Thammasat University. We have a journal called Songkhla Nakalin, Journal of Science and Technology. We have Surirat Medical Journal. We have Science and Engineering and Health Studies, Pharmaceutical Sciences Asia. So this is for those who are in the field of pharmaceutical, right? นะเภสัชนะครับ Journal of Public Health and Development, and also Thai Journal of Veterinary Medicine. This is for those who, treat pets, right? So it means that in science, there are many different subdisciplines, right? So make sure that you submit your papers to the right journals. The right journals mean they are the journals whose aim and scope are concerned with the content in your paper. Okay, for example, if you are from health science, maybe you can try public health, maybe Journal of Public Health, or sometimes Journal of Science and Technology, right? Yeah, I would give you a tip, right? You can look at first, every time before you submit your paper to any journal, you need to carefully look at the aim and scope of the journal, right? In the website of all journals in the world, they would have a page on aim and scope, or sometimes it's called about the journal, where you can have a look and then you can make a decision on the field, because they are going to usually list what are the possible fields of publication, right? Okay, another tip is you can browse through the current issue and the archives. Archives mean past issues. That there are two different words. Sometimes they are called archives, sometimes they are known as past issues, right? Where you can explore any published papers in this journal. And then, when you have a look at these published articles, this can help you make a better decision whether your manuscripts matches the aim and scope of the journal. If it doesn't, so you don't have to waste your time submitting your paper to that journal, because your paper would be rejected anyway, right? Two more. มีอะไรฮะ Buddhist studies, very good ครับ that is one student, and tourism as well, right? Yeah, tourism is considered to be under social science, right? Okay, now what we should consider when we choose a journal. So remember, I said when you choose a journal, you have to choose the journal smartly, right? The first thing is you have to look at the aim and scope of a journal, right? So that you would see what are the areas of their publication, what are the areas or sub areas that the journal is interested in publishing. And you can look at the archives and the current issue. This is when you are not so sure, but at least, right, before we make a decision to submit our paper to any journal, we just want to make sure that first our quality matches the quality, our quality of the paper matches the quality of the journal, right? For example, if you are new in the field and this is your first time conducting research for your PhD study, and this is the first time that you try submitting your paper to an international journal, sorry. So you might as well submit it to like a journal that is less demanding, like those in Q4, something like that. You can look at the turnaround time. Turnaround time is like the total amount of time, like maybe 6 months, 8 months, or whatever, right? From the first date of submission. And please note that for Scopus Index journals, right, you need to have at least 6 to 12 months for consideration. For example, if you submit your paper to Learn Journal, it's gonna take you like 3 to 4 months for initial screening, just because we have received a lot more number of manuscript every day. Manuscript mean the paper that they submit to our journal, right? Okay. You can also look at the article number per issue. So here it can help you make a better decision as well, because there are also some journals that is published only once a year, and they publish maybe 7 to 8 articles per year. Per issue here mean per year in that case. So it means the rejection rate might be too high, right? Or maybe they don't need too many papers, right? So here, if you submit your papers to any journals that the publication frequency is low, or they don't publish many articles in one issue, maybe even though your paper is of good quality, it's gonna take you time to wait for their decision, or maybe even though your paper gets accepted, it's gonna take you like 1 or more year to see your papers being published, right? Because that they have policy that publish only not many, right, per issue นะครับ uh, you might need to look at the publication fee and submission fee. There are many journals in Thailand and some other countries that require authors to pay, right? Because they have management fees, right? These are sometimes called APC. APC stands for Article Processing Charge, right? And some Scopus Index journals, they charge very high APC. And if the authors need more pages, they are going to charge you more. For example, maybe you might need to pay like 500 US dollar for a paper of 8,000 words. But if you would like to publish 9,000, maybe you have to pay more, something like that, right? So here you can see that publication is a kind of business nowadays, right? But there are many other journals that do not charge authors at all, like Learn Journal, right?ภาษา. Some journals in the field of language education in Thailand do not charge APC นะครับ to the best of my knowledge. You can look at the database. This is important. If there are many databases that are acceptable, but Scopus, in the world, there are two main databases that are considered the best quality. One is called Web of Science, or in the old days, it was previously called Thomson Reuters ISI, right? And the other one is Scopus. Actually, they are like competitors of each other in this field, right? But the reason why many universities pay more attention to Scopus and Web of Science lies in the fact that these are the two acceptable databases, right, used in university world ranking. For example, Times Higher Education, QS World Ranking, right? They rely on the data in Scopus when they rank the, uh, when they come up with the academic ranking of that university, right? So database is crucial because for graduate students, right, you need to conform to the study program requirements. If they say you have to publish in any journal, uh, no, not lower than Scopus Tier 1. TCI Tier 1, right? So it could be TCI Tier 1 or Scopus. Scopus would be even better. If they say TCI Tier 2, life will be easier, right? You can publish in TCI Tier 2 journals, or Tier 1 would be better, and Scopus would be much, much better, right? And as I mentioned to you guys, right, some universities, they say only Scopus would be allowed, right? If you want to get a PhD from our university, you need to publish in Scopus, right? Okay, I show you some examples of Learn Journal. Learn Journal is published by Language Institute, Thammasat University. Learn here stands for Language Education and Acquisition Research Network. And we invite manuscripts on a wide range of topics, including second or foreign language acquisition and education, language testing, language assessment, EAP, ELF or English as a lingua franca, applied linguistics. This is quite broad, right? Teacher training, professional development, innovations in language teaching and learning, language planning, and language policy. So every time before, when you are interested in submitting your paper to a journal, you need to browse through the aim and scope presented clearly in the website, right? Okay, if your paper fits one or more of the uh, the list here, one or more of the keywords listed here, right? You can feel safe and feel okay because it means your paper is related, right? But if you are not so sure, for example, we from time to time receive some papers on pure linguistics, right? They are papers, they might be good papers, but they have been done on with like German linguistics, for example, French linguistics, and it has no implication to language teaching at all. So even if the quality of the paper is very good, that paper would be rejected just because it's not in the scope of the study. It's not within the scope of the study, right? We skip this one the same. And we can look at publication frequency. Learn Journal publishes twice a year, right? So usually you can submit your manuscripts to a journal all year round, right? But it depends on what time, because most journals, they would mention in their websites that okay, it's gonna take like 6 to 8 weeks for initial screening, for example, and if your paper passes our initial screening, it's gonna take 2 to 4 months for reviewers to evaluate the results, right? And if your paper gets accepted but with revision, right? It also depends on how much revision you need. Like, do you need minor revision or major revision? If you if you have to experience major revision, it might take you like 2 to 4 more months to rewrite or revise. Maybe the reviewers found some missing information, or maybe they found some misinterpretation of your data, something like that, right? But they are generous enough not to reject your paper. It's like you are given second chance, right, to revise your paper. Now we are going to talk about that later. For example, for Learn Journal, you can submit your manuscripts to Learn all year round. But it depends. For example, if you submit it now in March, and it's going to take like 2 to 3 months for initial screening, and then after that, it will be sent out to two peer reviewers, right? We will talk about the number of peer review later. But for Learn Journals, two reviewers are asked to assess the quality of the submitted manuscripts, right? So in such a case, you get the results and it passed June already, right? You get the result and it needs revision. Maybe it's going to take you 2 more months to revise, and you need to find like professional editors or native speakers to edit your work. And maybe you can submit it to the journal in August. So here, the soonest time frame for that paper to be published, it would be like December. So in Learn Journal, we publish in June and December, at the end of June and at the end of December, right? So sorry, I was wrong. We publish at the end of January, right? The first issue is published on January the 21st, while the second one is on July the 31st. Right, 31st for both, right? But different journals have different date of publication. Some Thai journals, when they say the first issue covers Jan to June, they often publish on the last day of June. And also the last day of December is like the very last day of each round. But for Learn, we choose to publish on the last day of the first month in that round. So this differs from the journal policy in the journal policy. And another thing that you can also take into consideration is the submission categories, right? It depends, right? You can submit it to as research article, academic article, book review. Because you all are graduate students, I would say that actually you need to write research articles rather than academic articles, right? Because you are doing your study. Some of you might have carried out your study already, so you have your research findings in hand, right? And then you transform, and not transform, but you write your paper, you write your research article or research paper based on your thesis or PhD dissertation, right? If you are doing a PhD dissertation, you might be dealing with so many research questions, and this way you might be able to publish more than one research article, right? The tip is that if you have a big scale, don't put everything in one single paper, because it's going to be beyond the scope. Beyond the boundary, beyond the word limit given by that particular journal, right? So maybe you can also divide it into two papers and submit both into two different journals, right? For example, if you have like 3 research questions, the first article might be related to the first 2 research questions, and the other paper might be written based on the last research question, something like that. So it depends,นะครับ. You can consult your thesis supervisor who know the best about your work, right? And they can provide you with some useful suggestions on, how many paper do you need based on your study. So you have to read the information put in the website of any journal very, very carefully. For example, in Learn Journal, we say the article should be between 4,000 and 8,000. So if they say 4,000 is the minimum and 8,000 is the maximum, don't submit a paper with 8,200 because there are some journal systems that would reject right away if the submitted manuscript is longer than the maximum, right? They count everything. When they count the word, they count every word, every single word, right? Okay. And you have to carefully follow the journal policy. For example, this range of the length of the article, does this include tables, reference, figures? Because some journals would say 8,000 include everything. But in some other journals, they would say this number doesn't include tables, doesn't include references, blah, 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 right? Some of you might want to write academic article, but usually academic article is not easy to write. Some of you might think that it is just like academic review or literature review. But in fact, it's more challenging because you need to provide some critique, some theoretical critique based on some recent theories, right? So it's not just literature review, but you have to be critical. You have to provide your own voice, right? You need to put your voice in there. What do you think? You can also criticize or give some comments on some theories or some hypotheses, right? Okay, but I think for all graduate students here, what you are gonna write based on your thesis would be research article rather than academic article. And the last thing is book review, right? Actually, it's good to write book review, even though actually, to be honest, book reviews are not indexed in Scopus, right? Big book review is like you read a recent book that you are interested in and you write a summary. But that summary, only summary is not enough. You need to add some critique, some opinions, some viewpoints, or maybe you need to make a comparison between the book under review and some other related books or the previous edition, right? Okay. Usually the book review is not very long. It's relatively much shorter than research articles or academic articles, right? If you are new in the field, I'm not so sure, but if you are like first year student, second year student, I think you are reading a lot of books, a lot of textbooks, right? So you might as well write a book review on the book that you like, but make sure that they are recent books, like book published in 2025, book published this year, so that the recency would increase your chance to get your book review published more easily, right? Okay, now we are going to look at some top 10 reasons for journal rejection. Okay, the first one. Can you think of any common reasons why a manuscript is rejected? Can you type? You can type. Yeah, I think some of you, maybe if you are PhD students, right, you might have some experience when you publish your MA thesis based paper, or if you happen to be a university lecturer who are now doing your PhD, you might also have some experience of getting your work published. So there are some reasons that commonly make editors and reviewers reject your manuscripts. Okay, so please type. Let me have a look. Very good. The first one is out of scope. Correct, right. It doesn't fit the aim and scope of the journal. So despite the good quality of your paper, it won't be sent out for peer review because it doesn't fit the scope. Okay, right, not in the scope. Poor methodology. Very good. I love this one. Methodology is crucially important, right? If the methodology is weak, or if it's actually wrong, or inconsistent, or whatever, So chances are your paper would get rejected, right? Uh, I think if you are in good hands, right? Because Ma Fa Long University is a good university, so I think your supervisors have a lot of enough experience, right, to give you good guidance, right? But think about some people who are novice researchers, and they lack experience of doing research, right? And if you do something with poor research methodology, everything would be ruined, right? For example, if you are comparing student English test score, and you divide student into two groups, but you are supposed to be using the same standardized test. For example, if you ask them to take TOEFL, right? If the first group of students are asked to take TOEFL's IBT, while the other group of students are taking IELTS, that inconsistent, right? And such inconsistency can result in, poor methodology and thus rejection of the journal, right? Okay. The data do not adequately support the conclusion. Yes, I agree. I agree. Sometimes the data is limited and it's quite hard. Let's say if you are doing quantitative study, but you collect the data from just 20 students, right? 30 students, right? Uh, your analysis would be, I mean, your results would be doubtful, right? And maybe it's quite hard for you to draw generalization, because if you want to draw a convincing generalization, you need a lot of data. Right, so that this is going to convince your reader of the quality of your data, right? Okay, yeah. AI writing, oh, that's a very good topic, right? Right now, people are using AI, but there are many journals that do not object to the use of AI on condition that the writer have to declare the AI use. But there are many authors who are actually using AI, but they do not declare the use of AI, and they insist that I write it myself. But actually, if you are using AI like ChatGPT, Gemini, we can see the patterns, right? Now, ChatGPT often uses the patterns like delve into blah blah blah. They are going to have common patterns that can be identified by those who are familiar with that, right? Okay, so um, to me, um, writers can use AI for language accuracy check, because we don't speak English as our native language, right? It's not our first language. So when we write, we can produce some errors, or there could be some word choice problem or whatever that is very commonly found among learners like us, right? Okay, so here you can I think you can use AI to help correct grammatical mistakes, right? But if you ask AI to do more than this, you have to be careful, because sometimes AI sometimes they change your content, or maybe they paraphrase your content, but your main idea, the focus of your idea has been shifted to something else, right? Sometimes I ask AI to try paraphrasing my English, but you know what? It comes out as output surprised me a lot, because it seems to me that the focus has been changed to something else, right? I mean, when we write, we are focusing on some aspect or some results, but chances are the AI may paraphrase by changing the focus, right? Okay, and this might not be what we want. One of you said lack of contribution. Yes, if it doesn't provide any new information, or if you are doing something that is nothing new, everyone knows already, so it's likely that it's going to get rejected. All right. right? It might get rejected, I mean, by even the editors. So me as editor, what I and the other editorial team members are usually doing is we assess the quality of the submitted papers by looking at the research title, the abstracts, and then we browse through the paper. But in the paper, even though the methodology has nothing wrong, the language is, the manuscript is written with good English, but it doesn't have it doesn't make any contribution in the field, right? For example, old methodology or repeated findings, the findings that do not provide any new knowledge. So chances are such papers would get rejected, right? Especially if you submit it to, uh, you know, high quality journals like Scopus journals,นะครับ. Okay, one of you said do not follow journal policy. Yeah. So every time you need to carefully study the author guidelines, right? Maybe it's quite boring to read the author guidelines found in the journal website, but you have to read that carefully. You have to spend time reading them back and forth. Yeah, even though it's tedious to do so. Why? Because there will be some journals that say all the authors must conform to the journal policy. For example, Learn Journal, as well as RELC Journal from Singapore. All the submitted papers must be placed in the journal style sheet template, right? Style sheet template means you need to use the style sheet template of that journal and put your text according to the template. But it's no guarantee that your paper would get accepted. But at least the editorial team want to make sure that once your paper gets accepted, the authors will be able to do the formatting. Right. Otherwise, this is going to be burdensome for the editorial team if the authors cannot work with the template, right? So there are many things. Or if some journals say you need to declare AI, but you haven't, so they have their own right to reject your manuscript right away, right? So different journals have different policy. Okay. Another thing that people may not know is you cannot submit the same manuscripts to more than one journal. Doing so is called multiple submissions, right? Multiple submissions are unethical or even consider a crime in education, right? In academics. Because, think about this. If you submit your papers, one single paper to two journal, right? And both journals ask reviewers to review your paper. But once both journals accept your paper, let's say, given that the quality of your article is excellent, right? And you get accepted by both journals, usually authors would choose the journal that are of a higher rank. So if you choose journal B, just because journal B is more reputable and more well known than journal A. But actually it's not fair to journal A to that you stood it up, right? So nowadays, right, all journals would require some statements, right? That you have to mention officially in your some parts of your paper or in the submission that you accept that this paper has never been published before or is not now under consideration by another journal, right? If if they find that you submitted to more than one journal, right, they are going to withdraw your paper, right, and you are going to get blacklisted,นะครับ. So please keep in mind that with one paper submit it to one single journal. If you get rejected, you can submit it to a new journal. If that journal takes your paper into the very long process and you do not want to publish with it anymore, you need to write an email to the editor and wait until the editor responds and approves of your withdrawal, right, of the paper, right? What have we said? The findings are considered to have limited scientific and practical impact. Very good. Many bias, right? Yeah, I think if you are doing qualitative studies, right, maybe the researchers uh, are essential parts of the data analysis. It is the researcher who interpret the data and code the data. And this can involve biases, right? Research ethics ignore. Yeah, right. There are many kinds of research ethics, and avoiding multiple submission is one of them, right? Okay. So thank you very much for your contribution. Now, we are going to look at some before we take a break. Uh, okay, the first reason is poor fit between your paper and the journal, right? So make sure that your journal follows the aim and scope. Not your journal, your article follows the aim and scope of that journal strictly. Okay. Second, avoid doing dated topics, right? The topics that were very popular in 80s and 90s are not popular right now. So these topics should be avoided. For example, in language teaching, right? Doing something like sentence level error analysis, this is out. It was very popular in 1985, 1987, 1990. But right now, doing something like this is outdated. Or, use schema theory to teach writing is also out. Integrative motivation also out. These are examples, right? So I would suggest that in your field, there are some papers published that are about the current trends, right? The current trends in, for example, the current trends in biochemistry, the current trends in veterinary sciences, and so that you can consult the results of those journals นะครับ dated references. Some of you might think that, oh, it's okay, I can include some any references, any old references. But actually, this is something that matters, right? It does matter because um, let's say in language teaching and learning, if your study reviewed only the teaching context before 2020, and you never have any space dedicated to online teaching or hybrid teaching as a consequence of COVID-19, your paper is considered outdated, right? See, so make sure that, let's say this year is 2026, right? You are supposed to include up to this year, up to 2025 and 2026. Okay. Yeah, this is to show that you are aware of the recent trend, not the current trend. Right. I would suggest that most of the references that are outdated or those published 20 years ago, this can result in desk rejection easily. Right. Okay. You can cite some classic work published in 1980, but just cite only some seminal works, some works that are classic and are cited by every subsequent studies, right? But I like you to refer to more recent references. This is going to increase your opportunity to get published, right? Number 4, poor language quality. Okay. Uh, Again, this is another thing that we should take into consideration as well. Many researchers do not care much about the language quality and they just submit their first draft. Believe it or not, the language problem is one of the most common reasons why the journal editor decides to reject that paper. Maybe because when they browse through your journal abstracts, no, I mean, sorry, the abstract of the article, they would say, oh, it contains a lot of grammatical mistakes, a lot of errors, and it's very hard to understand the main idea that the writer is trying to present, right? To share with you one piece of experience, right? This is from my experience. We once get a paper, a very interesting paper from South Korea, and actually we want to have, we hardly publish papers from South Korean researchers, right? But when we read, I mean, the editorial team browse through the abstract and the paper, it's quite hard to understand. Yeah, because it contains so many errors that the main idea has been blocked. I mean, our understanding is blocked, and it's very hard for us to reach the idea and the main finding being presented in that paper, right? But we are at that time we were kind enough to submit it to both to two reviewers, but both reviewers rejected this, saying that they did not understand the point written there because of very poor language. So it's like, sometimes if the language is too bad, right, this can hinder the understanding of the readers. But I think right now you can rely on AI. Now you can ask AI, like Grammarly, for example, to check your grammatical accuracy. But again, you need to declare the use of AI. What AI did you use, for example, or how did you use it? In what way did you use that AI? You have to declare it clearly, right? To show that you are sincere enough, right? Okay. I would say that you can use AI to check your language, right? You can also ask excellent professional editors, like maybe anyone who speaks English as a native language, or but they need to know your field as well, or anyone there are many institutions in our country that have this kind of service, right? But if it's urgently required, right, they are going to charge you more, right? For Learn Journal, for example, we would ask those accepted paper, the writer of any accepted paper, to revise. And after the revision of the content, that paper must be edited thoroughly by a native speaker of English. Okay? Now, so this is very important. Don't assume that your English is good enough, right? Because sometimes we think our English is perfect, but the editors and the reviewers might think differently, right? So don't waste your time by taking this risk, okay? And that's why you cannot, and when you seek the help from your editors, like professional editor or editing service, it means you have to pay. So you cannot negotiate with the editor or with the journal that can you send it to reviewer as is, and then after they accept my paper, I will revise the content and I will ask a native speaker to edit it. But actually, you might not have a second chance because the paper might have been rejected earlier, right? So here, I would suggest you need to round off language checking นะครับ the first time is after you finish your draft and you think you are ready to submit it to any journal, ask a native speaker, a qualified native speaker of English, to have a look and check, or maybe use some AI like Grammarly to help you, right? And the second time is after you have a chance to revise, revise it first, right? And after you are satisfied with the content having been revised, you can then ask the same, I would suggest that the same native speaker to have a look. Why? Because they are used to the content that you wrote. Right. They don't have to waste time reading the whole thing again. But it's like they are familiar with your content. Okay. Ah, this one, actually, this one has been uh, introduced by some of you, right? Non-compliance of the journal guidelines, right? So I think you supposed to read the author guidelines very carefully and follow the guidelines as well as you can, right? In the guidelines, they include everything about the length, format, referencing style. Okay, if they say you need to use APA 7, you cannot just say now I'm using APA 6. Can I know? No negotiation in this respect, right? Or don't assume that the editors would be that generous because if any papers that do not uh, conform to the author's guideline can be rejected easily, right? Format, the length. If they say the length should be I mean, the maximum is no more than 8,000 words. But if you submit now 9,000 word paper, chances are it's gonna get rejected. นะครับ So we talk about this article style sheet template, right? So there are many journals that usually nowadays, right? Almost all journals have style sheet template for authors to download and use it. And there are many other journals that strictly ask authors to strictly follow the style sheet template for their submission. So it means that any submitted manuscripts must be uh, well formatted, right? If it's not properly formatted, right, it won't be sent out for peer review, something like that. This is one way to force the writer to strictly conform to the author's guideline, right? Usually these guidelines are available in the journal website, right? Okay, so I think it's a must to carefully read the author guidelines before you submit your paper to any journal because I think more than 75% of the submitted paper would get uh, rejected by the editor, right? Just because it doesn't conform to the format of the journal. Once your paper is submitted, let's say today you submit it to a journal, and a week later, the editor looks at your paper and they decide to reject your paper just because number one, uh, your paper that doesn't conform to the author guidelines, or maybe because your paper is too long, or maybe because your paper doesn't match the aim and scope of that study, right? What is the term for this? Do you know? That there is one term uh, for editorial rejection. Editorial rejection means the rejection takes place by, in the editorial decision. I mean, your paper is rejected by the editor or editorial team. What is the term for this? เรียกว่าอะไรฮะ That is called desk rejection นะครับ desk is like your desk, the desk that you are using for your work, right? Desk rejection is like the rejection takes place on the desk, right? So here, if the editor or the chief editor or the editorial team members who have been assigned to screen your paper. And if they discover that your paper doesn't fit the aim and scope, they will reject your paper easily. They will reject your paper right away. And this is called desk rejection or editorial rejection. So that's like initial screening process, right? It's part of initial screening process where your paper has no chance to be sent out to peer reviews. Okay, thank you for คุณลลิดานะครับ to type this rejection. Okay. Ajahn Samantha asks, how do you declare the use of AI? So different journals will use different ways, right? In some journals, they are still working on this. In some other journals, they do not have any format. They just say declare, and you can declare in the submission system. I mean, when you submit your manuscripts via the system, there will be some box where you can type your information about how much you rely on the use of AI and how and why, something like that. Yeah, so you are right,นะครับอาจารย์, because each journal has different format or requirement of AI acknowledgement. So it depends, right? It varies from one journal to another. Okay. Thank you for your response, right? Okay. I think, okay, now it's 2:30. I'll give you like 10 minutes for Q&A. นะครับ before we take a break เชิญนะครับอาจารย์ it's time for Q&A อันนี้จอเป็นอะไรไม่รู้หน้ามันมาครึ่งโอเคครับ if you have any question feel free to turn on your microphone to ask or you can even type in the chat box chat box หายเอาอยู่นี่อาจารย์เชิญนะครับ you can type anything in the chat box any questions now we have 71นะครับ very good มีอาจารย์ด้วยไหมครับอันนี้เราเปิดคนนอกด้วยไหมฮะor only I mean anyone outside MFU students and faculty allowed to join the talk today oh yes very good so they are generous enough นะครับขอบคุณมากครับขอบคุณมากครับมีบุคคลภายนอกด้วยนะครับ good โอเคเชิญนะครับมีคำถามไหมครับ any question yeah you can type in the chat box any question that you would like to know when I give such a talk right I have been giving a series of talks about publication and I found some questions very interesting and thought-provoking so I can also even share these questions with the later audience, right? The audience that I meet in the following talks นะครับ so I mean you can help นะ any question okay if you don't have I have a few questions to ask you to think number one let's say reviewer okay let me talk about reviewer if you are going to publish in right now Mahesi or higher education ministry they have a rule and regulation that if you want to get promoted now it's not about graduation but about getting promoted about career promotion if you want to get promoted you need to publish in high journals maybe TCI1 or whatever but that journal has to use at least 3 reviewers right that's true but if you are working with international journals right international journals mean the journals that are indexed in acceptable databases like ERIC like the OAJ, Scopus, Web of Science, right? With these international databases, we can, the higher education ministry will not care about the number. For example, Learn Journal or some other journals in our field, right? They are using only 2 reviewers, and we think that's enough, right? That's enough. Okay. But if you are publishing in only national journals, the journals that are indexed in TCI only, right? Maybe you need 3 reviewers, but don't worry because almost all journals have adapted, right? Right. So Ajahn Patini, you are correct. 2 is still not enough for TCI 1 or 2, right? Is correct. But if that journal is an international journal, like Learn Journal has 2 statuses. We are considered an international journal, right? So we are still able to use 2 reviewers. Okay. นะครับ and we are TCI 1 as well. Any journals in Thailand that are indexed in Scopus or Web of Science would be assigned TCI 1 นะ as a default because Scopus is higher than TCI นะครับโอเคอาจารย์บอกว่า can you explain more on how to write an academic article? What are differences between research article and academic article? Usually, academic articles do not present research methodology. Academic article is like review of theory, review of related literature or studies, but the researchers, actually the writers, have to, give some critical viewpoint, right? You need to evaluate the theory that you are referring to, right? So it's like literature review, but you should include your voice in there. You should provide some critique. Okay. Nah. So that's why academic article or บทความวิชาการ is different from research articles. If you are PhD student or MA students, right, you need to write research articles because the research articles are based on your research study from your doctoral or your MA studies นะครับ but academic articles can be written as well if you are writing something like book chapters, right? But academic articles, you can use it for your assistant professorship promotion, right? But the criteria would be very high นะสูงมาก you have to get like very good. Okay. อาจารย์พลอยไพลิน asks salami research. Salami is like usually your study is of very small scale, but you try to separate it into 2 pieces of research study because you want to get maybe 2 rewards, 2 times of rewarding, or there are many people who are cunning, or I would say they are too innocent, right? Or maybe they want to get like to publish 2 publications from 1 study. So I talk about doctoral study, right? If you are doing your PhD study or doctoral study, it's likely that you can separate this into 2 papers. You can write 2 papers based on your study. But if if your work is of very small scale, right, doing so is it's not recommended นะครับนะ it's not recommended at all because think about this. If it's a survey study and you use like an online questionnaire, you administer the questionnaire to 100 students, right? And then you also randomly interview 5 students. Usually the questionnaire and the interview, they are used together to cross-check the results, right? And these are called triangulation. Triangulation is the use of more than 1 research instruments to collect data. And usually because we cannot rely on the result from 1 single tool, right? Okay. Nah. But if you divide it into two study, 2 paper, right? It's going to weaken your research methodology, because it means that your research methodology doesn't have strong triangulation. I'll share with you one example. Many years ago, we received one paper, and it's part of a doctoral study in Thailand in applied linguistics. But once we got that we got that paper, we were very disappointed, because actually they published the main findings already, right? Because they refer to the published papers from this doctoral study, and this is going to be the third study, and in this study is a purely qualitative study, and they interview like only 6 students. So I'm not against qualitative study, but in this study, actually the interview should be used as a supplementary tool. It's not the main tool, right? And the methodology is not adequately presented, right, in terms of qualitative study, right? That's why, uh, you know, this is not a good paper, despite the fact that the whole study is a good one. You know what I mean, right? Actually, this study is good because it's a good doctoral study, but the main idea have been published already in the first 2 papers that are cited, right? We saw it in the references, right? So here, what has been sent to our Learn Journal was just like, the final part, ก้นถัง, something that is left, the residue, right? And, actually, it has not much merit, right? Okay? นะครับ When developing 2 papers in different articles based on your research question, some part of manuscript can be overlapping. Should I paraphrase? Yes. In the second paper, I mean some literature, especially literature review, right? Based on one single study, right? And if you want to develop 2 papers, right? Uh, yeah, of course, there would be some parts of the manuscript that would overlap each other, that would be overlapping each other, right? So I would suggest that you can paraphrase. Okay, you cannot just take it. You can paraphrase some, but you have to make sure that you have some new parts to present, right? The literature review cannot be 100% the same, not the same topic, right? Okay, there will be something that that are similar, but the focus that you are presenting would be different, right? Otherwise, it cannot be another paper. When you want to present the second paper, you have to make sure that what is the concentration or what is the focus that the second paper mainly deals with, right? Okay, but of course, if this is the second paper based on doctoral dissertation, you have to admit that the first paper has been published already. Otherwise, it's going to be self-plagiarism. And this can result in rejection, right? Or what is more scary than rejection is retraction. Many people do not know the term retraction. Retraction means once your paper is published in that journal, but the editor found that you have committed some academic crimes like self-plagiarism, or they have found that you plagiarize others, right? So they have no way out but to retract your paper. Retract is different from withdraw. Withdraw means they prevent your paper from appearing. They take it out in time. But retract means the paper has been published already, and the editor and the editorial team have to take your paper out, but they need to, the paper cannot be used. They are going to be, on every page of retracted paper, there would be diagonal words retracted, 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 to show that this paper has some problem and cannot be used. Right. It's a way to penalize the audience. And also, if the paper was taken out, it's like this is going to be the fault of the journal, right? But actually, it's not the case, right? Think about this. If the article was published last year and it's article number 16 out of 24, if it's been taken out or withdrawn, right? The rest of the paper, I mean, their page number would be affected because paper number 17, 18, or whatever, right, would have to be, I mean, assign new page number, which is not fair to the authors, right? Okay. If we face this rejection, okay, decision mainly aim and scope โอเคนะครับอันนี้ไม่ใช่คำถามเนอะ it's not a question นะครับโอเค share tips to write a research article of your paper what journal editor team mostly screening for yeah actually we walk you through many of them like aim and scope right there are some tips that you should know first look at the aim and scope of the journal that you want to submit your papers to. Second, follow the author guidelines. Whatever that are put in the author guideline must be followed strictly. Okay? And third, right, make sure that you write readable abstracts. The abstract that you write, usually the abstract, there are 5 main parts. Introduction in the abstract. Oh, first, it must be written in 1 paragraph. Okay? If you submit a research paper with 2 paragraphs, 2 or more paragraphs in abstract, that's not acceptable. And many journal editors reject this. Right. Okay. It should not be too long. It should not be too short. It contains 5 parts, namely introduction, purpose of the study, methodology, findings, and finally, discussion or conclusion or implications. The first and the last part are optional, right? What you need to have is purpose, methodology, and findings. Okay, nakab. So actually there are many more, but these are 3 key things to consider now to avoid this rejection, right? Because busy editors would look at the research title and then they would have a glance at your research abstract. If the abstract is not appealing to them, chances are they would just reject your paper, right? But if your abstract capture their attention, right, they would continue reading and maybe they would decide to send it out to peer reviews, right? For most well-known journals, the rejection rate could be as high as 90%, right? Okay, ครับ Any other question before we take a break มีคำถามไหมครับ Okay, so can we take a break for 15 minutes นะครับ and then we are going to meet again at 3. Don't worry, right? I give you more time for Q&A นะครับ in the second half ขอบคุณครับ เดี๋ยว15 นาทีพบกันนะครับ Okay, right. There are only a few more slides to cover. Right. Oh, thank you for joining us and for turning on your camera. Right. But I know that you are listening attentively because I have seen your interesting questions. Okay. Right. Now we are still on the top 10 reasons for journal rejection. And before we took a break, right, we covered 5. Now we are going to look at the other 5. Okay, weak literature. Right. This is when you review literature. Right. When think about when the editor decides to send your manuscripts out for peer review. Right. The peer reviewers are usually the ones who are very keen on your field. Right. For example, if you are doing something like teaching vocabulary, right, the reviewers should be anyone who has expertise in vocabulary teaching, for example. So they would expect some some citations from some references, right? But if these references are missing, they might ask you to add, or maybe they are the ones who have done some studies related to your study, right? But you haven't cited them, so maybe if they are generous enough, they might ask you to add these references, right? But as I said, there are some other people who might even reject that. Okay, so here, what is expected in the literature review are first a sound theoretical framework, right? This should be some theories, right? Some theories that are related to what you are reviewing, and then you need to synthesize relevant past research studies, and then highlight a critical gap that needs to be filled. Okay,นะครับ So it means that after you review all the related literature, especially the previous related studies, you need to state the critical gap, the research gap, right? What is the research gap that your present study is trying to bridge, right? Okay. And weak research methodology. So this one is consistent with what one of the audience today mentioned, right? Because the research methodology seems to be the heart uh, of the research paper. So here, editors and reviewers look for studies with a good research design. So it means that there are many different research designs that people in the field expect, right? For example, if you are doing quantitative studies, right, you might want to do a survey. So if you do survey, using only questionnaire might not be sufficient. You might also need some other techniques to collect data, like interview, like observation, to mention but a few. Or if you want to do an experimental study, to assess the effectiveness of a teaching method. Let's say you are teaching grammar to groups of students, right? You have to make sure that you have two groups, right? One is called control group and the other is a treatment group. If you have only one group, right? Even though having one group design would be possible, this can also reduce your chance to become successful, right? Because or in some studies, right, they have post-test score. They compare the post-test score of the student from the two groups without mentioning anything about the pre-test, right? Yeah, so these are examples of research flaws in the methodology. Or maybe they claim that this is a quantitative study, but they rely on the test score of only 5 students, right? So there is going to be some statistical failure, right? Because the result that you get from only 5 students would not be generalizable. It would not be enough, right? Inadequate discussion. Okay, I would like graduate students to pay particular attention to this reason, because it's a classic problems for new researchers or early career researchers like graduate students, because usually uh, they fail to discuss the findings. Some of them do not even know how to distinguish between result and discussion. They think that when you show the result in table or in figures, right, that's result. And discuss is like, for them, they think that when they describe the information in these graphics is the discussion, but actually that's not the case, right? Discussion is when you try to interpret the result, or when you try to say why this result is like this, right? You try to give some reasons to back you up when you interpret your data. Okay, and what you need to do is you need to compare between your study findings and the findings of from the previous studies, right? In what way in what way your study contributes to the discipline, right? Or in what way are findings of your study different from those in the past, or in what way are your findings consistent with those in the past, right? And what you need to do is to cite distinguished scholars. If you want to strengthen your claim, what you really need to do is to cite big names, cite distinguished or renowned scholars in the field, right? So, when you do research, you should know who are the big name in your field, right? And what you need to do is to cite them because, you are citing their names are really expected, right? Okay. Now, facing the review results, right? Usually, uh, if your paper was sent out to peer reviews, right, 2 or 3, or actually, some colleagues of mine encounter up to 5 reviewers, believe it or not, right? There are some other international journals elsewhere who do not pay the reviewers, but they can use up to even 5 or 6 reviewers, right? So we are going to work very hard to, make them happy, right? The first one, accept with no revision. Please keep in mind that number one is always impossible. You will never get accept with no revision unless they are predatory journals. Predatory journals are journals that want to make money out of writers, right? They are going to give you the review result within 7 days, 10 days, and they won't ask you for any kind of revision. As long as you pay, they are going to put it on the website, right? So, stay away from being trapped by those bad journals. They are like bogus or fake journals, right? Okay. What is the best is minor revision. They would say revision is required, but the only minor revision is like maybe they ask you to add some more literature, or maybe they ask you to reduce the word number, or maybe they ask you to write a stronger discussion, or maybe the table that you are presenting is not clear enough. They would like you to merge 2 tables into one, something like that. But they won't affect the main parts, right? Methodology, because if they identify some flaws in your methodology, it's the end of the world, right? You cannot rectify, you cannot correct these, and the revision cannot be made possible. Major revision, if you get major revision, don't be discouraged, right? Because if the editor still allows you to make a major revision, they still trust your ability. Maybe they still want your paper, but maybe because your paper contains a lot of problems, right? Maybe language errors, or there could be many other things apart from language errors, like writing, right? Or they would like you to rewrite abstract. They would like you to discuss more result in a more objective way, or whatever, right? So major revision usually takes much more time, right? Number 4, to me, right? To me, some journals do not have number 4. They have reject. Reject is like everything is done, right? No more. Uh, right. You cannot go further. But resubmit with major revision means your paper still has a lot of problems, and the reviewers are not so sure about the quality of the revised paper. So, given that there are major points to address in the revision, they want to see they want you to submit it again. It's like number 4 is like you are starting the whole procedure, right? It's like you submit it again, but actually, uh, you don't have to submit it again. That's called resubmit. But the reviewers usually they are going to have a look. So for many journals, right? It depends on the journal policy. For Learn Journal, editors and the editor-in-chiefs take responsibility of any manuscripts that are labeled major and minor revision. If we get major revision, we can have a look at the revise point by ourselves. But if the reviewer say resubmit, we have to send the revision back to the reviewer, and the reviewer will make their own decision. They are going to judge the quality of the revised paper, and they are going to let us know whether or not we should publish that paper. Okay?นะครับ. Even if you got rejected, it's not the end of the world. Don't be discouraged, right? That's normal, right? I got rejected so many times in my life, and I have never given up, right? If your friend says, I never got rejected, they are lying to you. Or maybe they are telling you the truth, but they never get rejected just because they never submit any papers to any journal, right? So here, I mean, don't be afraid, right? First, don't be too ambitious if you are new in the field. Second, don't be shy, don't be scared, right? Okay, try your best. Okay, work closely with your advisor, right? Maybe you can ask your advisor to assess the quality of your paper before you submit, and maybe your advisor can help you choose the journal that fits the quality of your paper. Okay, นะครับ Now, that is one thing that I think is worth discussing. Many of you might know this. Bill's list, right? This guy is Professor Jeffrey Bill from University of Colorado, and about 15 years ago, he developed a list that became world renowned. Right? He found that there are many journals that are questionable. Questionable in the sense that they accept the manuscript too easily, right? And Professor Jeffrey Bill himself even tried submitting one totally bad paper, right? And he said he cut and paste from 5 published contents, and they have nothing related at all, but he finally created that paper, and he submitted that paper to one journal that he thought it would be a fake journal, and within a week that paper got accepted, and they say, please pay. As long as you pay, we will publish for you. And he said, oh my gosh, impossible. Because that paper is like cut and paste from 5 different fields. It's like from linguistics, from biology, from physics, from architecture, and they just put everything into one paper. So it means that the editors of that journal did not even have a look. And they just, okay, publish. If you want to publish, pay. Right. So, he was at that time very worried about this. He said because some this kind of journals, they have been mushrooming in number, and some of them, they are like publisher. Now, not just one standalone journal, but they came in the form of publishers. Within one publisher, there are more than 30 different journals, right? Because they want to make money out of us, and they know that publishing is, a good business to make money out of, right? So in 2015 or 14, maybe longer than that, right? But Ministry of Education at that time prohibited publications in Bill's list. So Bill's list was very powerful then. So anyone whose papers appear in Bill's list cannot be used for graduation and cannot be used for academic title promotion, right? But he gave a talk once in Bangkok. นะครับ I also attended his talk because I was his real fan, and many people were concerned about him being sued by these gray journals, right? And finally, he was actually sued, and his own university asked him to stop. He said, Bills, please terminate doing this, right? Because the university got a lot of complaints from this journal ทัวร์ลง something like that. So finally, Bill's list disappeared forever นะครับ But I just mentioned this to remind you of the fact that there are many and many predatory journals, right? These predatory journals, they are going to accept all the papers in the world easily, as long as the authors are willing to pay. And once you publish in these journals, right, it's impossible to take it out and publish it in another good journal. And if this is part of your doctoral study, think it's like you are ruining your education, right? Now, these are some questionable journal characteristics. Fast peer review process. I would say pass too fast peer review process, and actually they haven't peer review any at all. Or there are some journals, believe it or not, some journals, some fake journals, they are indexed in Scopus. But once they got indexed in Scopus, they charge very high publication fees. These journals are likely to get kicked out from Scopus sooner or later. I have known some journals like this in the fields of language teaching, and they ripped off the authors, right? They ask them to pay like more than 2,000 USD per one paper, right? And a lot of authors complain about this with Scopus. And eventually, Scopus decided to punish these journals by removing them from Scopus, right? Okay. So, chances are this occurred to some authors because when they submitted their paper to these journals, the journals were still in Scopus. But once your paper came out, it appears that the journal is no longer in Scopus. So it's like, oh, it's a waste of your time, right? A waste of your paper. And these journals often create fake impact factors. They often create something like, okay, we have very high impact factor, but they are all faked because the real impact factors are calculated by Web of Science, right? Scopus doesn't have impact factor. Scopus have site scores นะครับ and they publish multidisciplinary it's like they publish everything in one issue that is not possible for a good journal, right? It's like they publish science, non-science in one issue, right? And you can browse through. They contain low quality of writing. I once came across one paper with 6 pages. I downloaded one paper from one notorious journal, and I was so shocked because it has only 6 pages, and the abstract is very short. And rather than saying this study aim at, they say this student aim at. See, that's common typo, right? And in all the lines, that there are a lot of errors, right? Okay, but such low quality papers got published in those journals, right? So it means that the journal quality is terrible. Okay, นะครับ I think now it's time for Q&A. Right, I give you more time Q&A, more time for Q&A นะครับ Okay ครับ so please feel free to ask. You can turn on the microphone นะครับ so that we can hear you. Or you can type your question. Oh, some of you, I think I know some of you นะครับ like อาจารย์พะเยา but I don't know whether it's อาจารย์พะเยา that I know maybe the same เชิญครับถ้ามีคำถามเชิญเลยนะครับ Oh, I think we have like 60 something, right? 64. I think half of the audience today are non-Thai, are international audience. Okay. อ่าสวัสดีครับอาจารย์พะเยาต้องเป็นอาจารย์พะเยาแน่นอนอาจารย์พะเยาจากราชภัฏเชียงใหม่ right? เพราะนามสกุลเดียวกับท่านอาจารย์รัชดนะครับ Okay, okay, let me answer คุณธีรีนะครับ If I want to write and publish a paper regarding Myanmar language, what kind of journal in Thai would you recommend? You mean Burmese, right? If you want to write something about Burmese or Myanmar language, you should also look for journals that are keen on linguistics, right? But you have to make sure that, when you want to cite anything in Burmese, right, you need to have English transcription, right? It's like, when you write your papers on Thai linguistic, Thai translation, or whatever, when you have Thai word or Burmese word in this case, you need to have equivalent in English so that international readers would understand you, right? And then translation. Okay, so I I think, if your paper is about Myanmar language, maybe you can look for language and linguistics journal นะครับวารสารภาษาและภาษาศาสตร์ but it's TCI Tier 1นะครับนะ it's a good journal but it's not in Scopus, right? Unfortunately Learn Journal is not interested in Burmese language นะครับ because we don't have any qualified reviewers, right? We focus more on English นะครับ or maybe you can tryมนุษยะนะ Journal of Humanities นะครับดร.ณัฐมาพงษ์ไพโรจน์ is the editor in chief and that's one of the best journals in humanities นะคะโอเคนะครับ or maybe you can try some general I mean the journal with more general aim and scope like HARS, like Journal of Multidisciplinary by ราชภัฏสวนดุสิตนะครับโอเคอาจารย์พะเยา thank you very much นะครับอาจารย์พะเยา is from ราชภัฏเชียงใหม่นะ long time no see นะครับ and maybe some other อาจารย์โอเคครับ no, คุณอาจารย์ธีรี it's not really hard to find. You can just type in the Google, right? Type in the Google, and if you are talking about the journals in Thailand, right? You mean the journals published in Thailand, right? There are some that might publish about Myanmar language, right? Okay. Oh, another thing that is just popped up in my mind is Journal of Mekong Societies, นะครับ Yeah, because that's a good journal index in Scopus Quartile 1, but I think the rejection rate is quite high, right? So, Mekong is like, they accept papers in this area, including Thailand, Vietnam, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, right? How many words would be appropriate to write abstract? Okay, that's a good question. It depends. You need to consult the author guidelines of each particular journal. So, different journals require different number of words. Don't exceed the, you know, the problems occurring to graduate students is you write more. You want to write more. If you are talking to undergrad students, they want to write less because they are due. But with graduate students, right, they want to write more and more and more. That's why the word limit has to be carefully conform to นะครับ so it depends นะครับ it depends, right? It depends on the journal policy, right? Okay, เชิญนะครับ are there any other questions? I think, from what I have seen in the class, sorry, I mean in the list, right? Most of you are from the science, right? To be honest, I do not know so many science journals, right? But I think what I have shared with you today would be useful to you, right? In one way or another, because I think you can also, I mean, get some ideas from my talk นะครับ I think there are many tips that I have been sharing with you, and maybe you might have not heard from any other people because not only am I a reviewer and an author, I have been editor for more than 12 years, right? And we have experienced different kinds of problems, and we have found even fake authors, or maybe sometimes don't do this นะครับ maybe when you submit it to a journal, it's like you and A and B, Professor A and Professor B. After that paper got accepted, some authors want to add more author. No, you are not allowed to do this, right? You know what I mean, right? It's like first You said that there were two authors. After the paper got accepted, you want to add one more. อันนี้ไม่ได้นะครับนะ because you know right now TCI cares a lot about this. They said, you know, in the world there have been some businesses. Maybe you might have heard about this, right? There used to be some bad people like scammers. Actually, I don't want to call them scammer, but you know, they are bad people. They are criminals who sold the authorship, right? It's like, you know, if you want to buy, you haven't contributed to that study, but you know the study is ready made for you, and you buy the publication, and you know if you are willing to pay a lot, like maybe 10 10,000 baht or 10,000 baht not by 100,000 baht, you have the whole ownership to you. But maybe if you want like to be first author, second author, it's like you pay at different rate. That's, you know, unethical, illegal, right? And you know there were many people having been caught uh, from doing that, right? นะครับ but you know there is also another new business that they sell authorship. Actually, you know, it's like, you know, one or two author submitted one paper to a journal, and they got accepted, and after that they advertise the authorship to other people that would you like to share my authorship? I can add your name if you pay เนี่ยมีนะอย่างเงี้ยนะฮะ so don't do that นะ that's terrible, that's unethical, that's illegal, right? Okay. อาจารย์สว่างจิตบอกว่า which journal would be suitable for article in Buddhist integrated with cultural space management? Yeah, Buddhist. Yeah, actually there were two journals in Buddhist นะครับนะ there are two published in Thailand. You can just type in Google Scholar นะ Buddhist journal or journal in Buddhism in Thailand, and you will see two in Scopus นะครับ in Thailand. But you know, if you don't care about getting in Scopus, you can try many other TCI one นะครับ there are many others นะ but the two Buddhist journal that I mentioned in the slides, they are also indexed in Scopus นะครับ I don't know, but some people say that, you know, Buddhist journals in Thailand, they are very rich. They, you know, enjoy a lot of money, right, from authors นะ โอเคขอบคุณนะครับมีคำถามอีกไหมครับเชิญได้เลยนะครับไม่ต้องเกรงใจนะอาจารย์ we have plenty of time today. Any question from any อาจารย์ or any any grad students? I have one good question to ask you. Actually, you know, this is a classic question that I ask everyone. Let's say, you know, if you get a research grant from your university, or you know, you graduate students, right? Let's say, you know, but actually they are the same case. Let's say you are a doctoral student นะครับใน BA and you know your doctoral dissertation title is a study of motivation by Thai learners of English in reading blah blah blah, I don't know, right? Is it necessary to use exactly the same title as the thesis or dissertation when you publish? Do we need to? What do you think? I mean, when you want to get your paper based on your thesis or dissertation published in a journal, do you still need to keep exactly the same word as what appears in your research title, in your thesis, or you can use a different one? Which one is preferred? What do you think? ต้องเหมือนไหมต้องเหมือนชื่อใน thesis เลยไหมฮะหรือต้องเหมือนชื่อในวิทยา or you know, if you are a university lecturers and if you get a scholarship or research grant, do you need to you know, come up with the journal the research title that is the same? Okay ครับ you say I don't, is that not necessary? Actually, it should not be it should not be the same. It should not be the same because, you know, Why? Think about this. Usually, the title in your uh, dissertation would be very long, right? And it sometimes it would be boring. Even though it's not long, it would be like, oh, boring, a study of investigation into, But when you write for a journal publication, you should come up with a catchy, attractive title, right? Could understand? So when you write the research title for your university, the title should be straightforward, should be written in a direct way, not straightforward way. But when you write it for journal publication, maybe you need to make it more attractive, make it more catchy, make it more sound like oh chic, trendy, right? So here it's going to be different, right? It's going to be different, and you should not. This is my own opinion. I might be wrong, but you should not use the same, because think about this: if you plan to graduate this year and your paper comes out this year, your dissertation is published this year, people would be confused when they cite you. Like, if you want to cite Supakorn Phoocharoensil, and I wrote my dissertation, the dissertation was published in 2026, and my paper published in a journal is also in the same year, right? So maybe we don't know which one you are referring to. Maybe it's quite difficult that, even though, when you look at the references at the end of the article, you would have seen the uh, clear detail, right? But it could be confusing. Nah? Or think about this. If you are writing a paper, right, based on your PhD dissertation, and you plan to write two papers based on one study, right? It's impossible to put all the variables in the research title, right? So this way, I mean, the research title should not be the same. For example, in your study, let's say, one of my student นะครับ Dr. ธนา เครือวงศ์ oh, he's one of my beloved student, and he's now teaching at Faculty of Education. He developed a word list based on English science textbooks used in Thailand. So this is one paper. When you develop a word list, it's not easy to develop a word list. There are many criteria, and there are some software programs that you have to use to screen, to filter out words using frequency range, lexical profiling, and you have to present it to experts to judge, blah, blah, blah. So it's very time consuming. This can be one paper. And based on the word list, Ajahn developed some lessons to teach. And he implemented this lesson based on the word list he created. And that's another piece of study, right? So in this way, you can see the two different phases clearly, right? There are two different phases. นะครับ So here, the paper can never have the same title as that in the doctoral dissertation. The doctoral dissertation might be a combination of, creation of word list and implementation of word list based lesson, something like that, right? But in the two papers, you have to separate this into two, right? Okay, นะครับอ่ะ เชิญนะครับมีคำถามอีกไหม Any other questions? I have learned from you as well, right? Many times. So, there are several times when, your questions are unexpected and, it's new to me. เชิญนะครับ Another question. เดี๋ยวนะ Christine. What happened if the reviewer asks for another writer from foreign university? What do you think? What do you mean, Christine? I don't quite understand. If the reviewer asks for another writer, what do you actually mean? Why does a reviewer ask for another writer?
อาจารย์คะ can I explain?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so this is my case, Ajahn. So my friend from my home country. So they submitted their work into their journal. And then suddenly, after everything done, or maybe in the process of reviewing, like by
Huh?
reviewer, they contact me like, do you want to be the co-author? And then like, what can I write? And then what can I contribute? And then they say like, oh, they just ask us like a name for an author from foreign universities. So yeah, it happened, Ajahn. So what do you think about it?
Oh, if I were you, I would decline, right? I would say no
Right.
because actually you have no contribution in that work, right?
Mhm.
Right. So maybe they just want internationalization or they just want to have like foreigners' name just to enhance their profile. I don't know. But please say no. Nah.
Okay.
Right, because actually, you don't contribute, right? You haven't contributed to that study.นะครับ. Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Agree, Ajahn.
sometimes some of my friends have the same experience. One of my friends said, "Oh, พี่คะ some people ask me to put my name in the paper. I'm not losing anything." But I prevented her from doing that. I said, no, 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 stay away from this kind of person because it sounds too good to be true. Maybe they want your name just for some reason. Maybe because they just want to have diversity of authorship, right? They just want to include those from other universities, right? นะครับ Okay, so don't do something like that. Okay. Christine, where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Indonesia, Ajahn, but I work in
Oh,
Paluang. Ka. Yeah,
I
I
see.
I accept this thing like twice or three times, and I always say
Mm.
no because I do not contribute anything, and I feel bad if I'm not contributing, Ajahn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, good. Right. Nah. Maybe you think, or sometimes the problems can be more serious if it's the other way around. I mean, if you join that study, but finally your name is not in the publication, right? In that case, right, you can sue them, right? Okay, that's going to be more serious, นะครับ Or okay, are there any other questions or anything that you would like to share? Maybe it's not a question, but you want to share with others. เชิญนะครับ Oh, I think I know some of you นะครับ Any other questions มีคำถามไหมครับสักหนึ่งหรือสองคำถามก็ได้นะครับไม่ต้องเกรงใจนะครับน่าจะหมดแล้วเนาะมีคำถามหลงอยู่ในนี้ไหมฮะไม่มีแล้วเนาะอ๋อ sorry when in a thesis developing stages what should be must consider to avoid any future rejection developing stages minimize unnecessary revision phase two. Oh, actually, this question is very difficult to answer, right? But what should be done uh, to avoid or to minimize the risk of getting rejected? So, do everything that I suggested, right? Yeah, if you can manage to do them all, right? I mean, you can minimize the rejection rate. Okay, you can minimize the rejection rate, right? Take everything that I shared with you into consideration. Actually, I have many other things to share, but I just shortlisted the key takeaways for you, right? So งั้นน่าจะหมดแล้วเนาะคุณแอนนี่ Okay นะครับ so if you have run out of questions นะครับ so thank you very much today I have to thank แม่ฟ้าหลวง University especially Office of the Postgraduate Studies แม่ฟ้าหลวง right for inviting me this is my second time to be online actually last year I went I also gave a talk at the School of Liberal Arts, right, in person. And a few weeks later, I was online. So if you have some time, please come and visit us at Thammasat University นะครับ Actually, we have one campus in Lampang นะครับ but that's quite far away from Bangkok, from Rangsit นะครับ Okay, so thank you very much for your time. Thank you for all the time that you have today. No more นะ Okay, please do satisfaction assessment ด้วยนะครับ Okay, thank you very much ครับ Thank you นะครับ
Thank
ขอบ
you
คุณ
very
มากๆนะครับ I hope my talk would be beneficial ครับ ขอบคุณครับทุกคนครับ ถ่ายรูปไหมครับคุณเบลคุณอะไรวะคุณ
Thank you.
ขอบคุณค่ะ ขอบคุณ ขอบคุณทุกคนขอบคุณมากๆเลยบางคนเราเคยเจอกันแล้วนะอาจารย์พยาวขอบคุณมากเลยครับ เดี๋ยวไปพูดให้อาจารย์พยาวฟังอีกรอบหนึ่งแต่นั่นจะเจาะลึก
Thank
อิน
you
ไซต์
very
ทาง
much.
ภาษาอังกฤษ ขอบคุณอาจารย์ธันนี่ก็น่าคุณอาจารย์ธันนี่แต่ไม่ใช่ทางภาษาอังกฤษใช่ไหมอาจารย์ธันนี่
Thank you very much, Associate
Thank you
Professor
so
Dr.
much
Supakorn Phoocharoensil, for generously sharing your valuable knowledge and extensive experience with us today. Your insight into academic writing and publication have been incredibly helpful, and we are grateful for the expertise you impart. And of course, thank you for all participants for being so engaged and for your great questions throughout the session. We hope you're feeling inspired and ready to write. Before we head out, we would like to hear your feedback. Link that you are in chat box to fill out the short survey. It really helps us to make session even better for you next time. So have a fantastic rest of your day, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks again, and goodbye.